you're not 18. But the truth is, you guys have a moral responsibility to my generation and the generation before me to come out to vote, because honestly, there's people who died for us to vote.
Rings with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. America can be exquisite. Go out and vote!
You voted?
Raise the turnout of your neighborhood, get the respect you deserve.
Are you voting this year?
I just registered yesterday. I told most of my friends to go register, and we're all going to be voting in November.
Continue to vote.
Listen, I will be voting as long as my life depends on it and my children.
If all those people who say it didn't matter actually got out and did vote, it would make a huge difference.
May I ask why you voted?
My vote is to take care of you young people, of a better life.
Imagine how long it took him to get here. Exactly. And people take voting for granted. Come and vote. Let us march on till victory is won.
It's insane to be right here talking to you about this.
Why?
Because this is where it started, right here in Red Hook. I'm Tiffany Davis, Executive Director for Red Hook Art Project. We started Red Hook Art Project in 2009 because my own son was struggling trying to find a positive outlet for his creativity. I was a young, single mother, overwhelmed, and I knew I couldn't do it alone. So that's when I turned to this community to find an answer. Because in Red Hook, we take care of each other. And when we're talking about our children and their future, it is up to us to show them what they are worth and that their circumstances should never, ever limit their dreams.
I had my daughter at 18. The streets was my thing, my life. And I'm happy that she didn't follow my footsteps because she had opportunities like rap. Tiffany made art a lifeline for people.
Whether it's nurturing their creativity,
art is colorful,
supporting their academic goals,
Miss Tiffany will remind you when things are due,
teaching them how to be strong leaders,
helping people who are less fortunate, it feels good to do.
Or protecting their safety and mental well-being. We're always here for them day and night.
She's pretty much like a second mom.
Rap is a place full of people that they can depend on to never let them down.
If you got somebody like her behind you, you don't need nobody else, because that's all I need is her behind me. We got each other, right, Tiffany? We always got each other. From rap to life.
They have all the talent, all the heart, all the drive. They just don't have the access. And that's what we have the ability to change, because art is a basic human right.
You can go out and be who you want to be.
Art is community.
It's very comfortable.
Art is our truth and our voice.
Art makes me feel free.
Art saves lives.
Art saves lives!
You're watching Brooklyn Free Speech HD.
have to look. I think it's the second.
Does everybody have their cell phones on silent, please?
Hey, how's it going? My name is Sky McLeod. I am the Senior Director of Media Education here at BRIC, and I just want to welcome you all to tonight's Perfect Your Pitch event. This is the first of a series, the BRIC Pitch Series, and it's awesome. It's in its 6th year now, and it's meant to kind of give you some insider tips and points on how to develop a pitch and develop a pitch deck and all the things that you need to sell your idea to TV and film executives. So also want to say that this is the first day of BRIC Media Maker Weekend, so I think many of you were participating in some workshops earlier, and I encourage you all to keep joining the excitement this weekend. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Kecia Elan Cole, the Director of Fiction for BRIC TV, who will be moderating tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. I want you all to give yourselves a hand one more time. Where are my content creators at? Where y'all at? You're in the house. You're representing. Thanks again. My name is Kecia Elan Cole, and just so excited to have this conversation with you and our illustrious panelists this evening. We have the creme de la creme of industry insiders to help decode all of the stuff and all things pitching. We get really philosophical. We're not going to tell you technically how to make your pitch panel, but you're going to come away with some really salient information that's going to hopefully propel your careers forward. I want to know how many content creators here are tired of, or they're ready, let's say that, be more positive. They're ready to get that content off of your laptops, and you want to get that content onto some streaming platforms. You want to get that content into the hands of some producers or some distributors, and possibly into theaters. Can I get a hand? See? Okay, well, here we go. In our whole energy of being a pitch panel, I'd love for our illustrious panelists to actually give a short elevator pitch, if you would, for themselves. So I won't, be sitting here and reading all of their awesome accomplishments off my phone. They're just going to tell you about themselves. And we're going to start with Tony Gerber.
Thank you. Thanks, Kecia. It's wonderful to be here. Nice to meet everybody. My name is Tony Gerber. I'm a writer, director, producer based in Brooklyn. I've been blessed to be able to make films all over the world. I've made something like 15 films for National Geographic in the course of the last 15 years, I'd say. Most recently, something called Kingdom of the White Wolf, which you can see on Disney+, which is 3 hours shot in the Canadian Arctic, in the high Arctic, about something like 75 miles from the North Pole. Since 2005, I've had a production company in Brooklyn called Market Road Films. I founded it with my wife, playwright Lynn Nottage. We work in nonfiction and fiction. We recently were Peabody nominated for a podcast called Unfinished Deep South. Last year, we produced a film called Takeover about the young lords who took over a hospital in the South Bronx in 1970. This was a New York Times op-doc, short documentary. It was nominated for an Emmy, it was shortlisted for an Oscar, and I'm very proud to say we're turning it into a feature film with a screenwriter named Jose Rivera, who wrote Motorcycle Diaries and On the Road, writing the screenplay. He's the first and only Puerto Rican screenwriter ever to be nominated for an Oscar, and hopefully that'll be in theaters in a couple of years. It takes a long time, people. Got to be patient. All right.
Okay, awesome. actually not going to go in order because this is TV. Misha, we'd love you to go next, and then we'll go to Kristine.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you. It's so nice to be here in person, finally, again. I get a lot of joy out of this. But my name is Misha, and I started making content 7 years ago. I was a frustrated actor, and there just weren't any roles at the time that I could see for someone like me on TV. So I did a pretty hard pivot, and I started making one web series a year, every single year. And they did quite well on the festival circuit. And then BRIC and I met at Tribeca, and I made a show for them. And then I made a show that got onto Reverie, the queer network. And we were just campaigning for an Emmy this year for that show. So sometimes, if you get lucky, things can take not very long. So hang in there. I've got a feature film getting announced tomorrow, actually, that I'm writing and directing. And thank you, I'm very excited. Dealing with the press is a whole other, I mean, it's just, everything is pitching. I guess that's my theme for the night. But yeah, I just look forward to talking to you all.
Awesome. Let's go to Kristine.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kristine. I am a lot of things. I started out in marketing and advertising over a decade ago, working for agencies, brands, publishers, doing digital marketing, and then my career led me into audience development and strategy. So today, I'm actually at HBO Max, where I do a lot of the audience planning for all of the HBO Max shows. So everything from Sweet Life LA to Justice League and Titans and all of the DCU properties to some upcoming, musical documentaries. Some I can tell you about, some I can't. But there's a lot of fun stuff coming out. So I do a lot of the strategy behind all of those shows. I also do consulting for independent brands and people across different industries such as travel and fashion, beauty, and sports as well.
So awesome. And last but not least, Matt Grady.
Hey everyone, my name is Matt Grady. I have a distribution company, production distribution company called Factory 25, based here in Brooklyn. I've had Factory 25 for 13 years and have released like over 130 films and I try to produce like 1 or 2 a year. And it's some docs and some features, and I've done, in the past 5 years, I've done 2 feature films with BRIC, one Inspector Ike, and the other one, The Great Pretender. And yeah, so I've been on both sides of pitching, so I definitely have ideas of what's good, what's up. So I've been on both sides. So
I love that. Oh yeah, clap, clap, clap. I love that everyone is so diverse and so awesome, and we do have a lot of different experience. I personally, like they said, I've worked with Misha and Matt directly on projects for BRIC TV, and I executive produce a lot of stuff. I also executive produce a docuseries here at BRIC called Brooklyn Made. And Kai, our general director, just walked in of BRIC TV, who got me my start so long ago, everybody. But we are working on several scripted projects, and some of those we did find at the open pitch, so we will talk about that later, that we are always looking. There used to be something called pitch season. Is there still pitch season? Is there a time of year that we are getting our ideas together, or is it just a free-for-all? Anybody can answer? I'm not getting this directly.
I think it's basically 12 months a year. I mean, like a lot of Hollywood executives take vacations in August. I don't know about your office. Probably it empties out pretty much in the summer, right? And you probably work 4-day weeks, right, in the summer? Summer Fridays and all that? Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, that, but what I've heard is year-round. I mean, with the streamers, everything has changed. When it was just broadcasters and the big networks, then there were seasons, but now it's on the go all the time. That's my understanding.
Yeah, that is true. There used to be, and then I learned that, you know, really pitch season had to do with selling cars, and that it was like network TV, and you know, it was all about when the new cars came out. So it's still the case if we're getting on network TV, but you know, we have a lot of levels, we have a lot of inroads now. What would you? I mean, this is the basic question: how do people start? Obviously, we have all of these awesome people here, and who's ever watching at home, you know, kind of everybody's a content creator these days, but how do you take it to the next level? And like I said, get it off of your laptop and into the room. What are some of the first steps that you think that people should, Misha?
Yeah, you have to really care about what you're doing and not care about the validation of someone giving you a green light, because that's death to your soul. Because what happens when you get your first no, right? So you step one, you have to really give a darn about what you're doing, like from your heart. And then I think you have to have a goal for it. You're like, well, what is the goal? And it can't be self-serving. I mean, it will be, but you know, what's the next goal? To help people, or to help the planet, or uplift my community, or tell this story about this medical condition, or whatever it is. And the farther and the bigger the reach of that goal, the easier it's going to be to coast over the really kind of rocky waters of trying to get someone to give you money, because that can be quite challenging.
I will add something there. A lot of great points. There is one thing that I feel like you guys have already started, which is coming here today. The big part of one thing I learned and understood is how the power of your network and the people that are next to you, the people that are in the room with you. You never know who has an opportunity or who has a connection to somebody you might need to get you somewhere. So I've had people reach out to me. I'm not directly in programming at HBO, but people who have had show ideas, people in the music industry or any other industry, and asked to be connected to the person who is doing the programming for an upcoming season of a show. So in the beginning, your network is huge. You know, LinkedIn is not a dead platform. Everybody still connects on LinkedIn. People talk in person. Social media is there for a reason. So I will say, in the beginning, utilize your network.
Yeah, and I totally agree about like writing, coming up with things from the heart, and not just checking off all the boxes of what you think people want to see or what people want to hear. Do things like stories that like you care about, because the person you're pitching is going to want to know that you care. Yeah.
Okay, that's really important. The passion is such, it's just quintessential. Like, what is the story and why are you the best person to tell it? And a lot of times that's passion. And what happens, I'm sure HBO is not taking just, you know, unsolicited pitches, correct? You were saying that you have to know somebody who knows somebody and use your LinkedIn. Do not, you know, write Kristine with your pitches. But this is how, when you're starting off, though, what might be one of those first steps? I think our last conversation, we were talking about kind of which came first, the chicken or the egg. Like, you have your idea, but do you have to have made something? Like, how important is that to have other projects under your belt?
I think if you're anything but just a writer, yes, you do need to have made something. Because if you're coming in as a creator or a possible showrunner or a director to be attached, they're going to want to see that you can direct. But if you're just a writer, I mean, just keep writing and get your craft excellent.
Good point. Does anybody else want to speak to that?
Yeah, I would also add that thinking about Hollywood, and Hollywood is no longer just California, right? It's no longer centralized in the way it was, right? It's also Atlanta, it's also New York, you're right, it's also Toronto, right? So the streamers are all over, right? Thinking of that as the ultimate measurement or metric for success is a mistake, right? You guys, many of you have the means of production already in your backyard, you know, in your apartment, here at BRIC, right? So making, creating, not waiting for permission is very, very important. As was pointed out, you know, if a pitch is rejected and that just destroys you and you're done, what's the point, you know? So perfecting your craft, not waiting for permission, making work locally, okay, with the means that you have, right? You don't have to have a lot of money to make beautiful work. You really don't. 20 years ago, maybe you did. You had to have a camera, right? You had to have an edit system. Nowadays, this stuff is accessible. You can make movies on your phone. And if you're doing something absolutely extraordinary that no one has seen, people will find it, okay? And that's the other thing about social media. It's self-distribution, right? And believe me, the folks at the platforms, at the streaming platforms and at the studios are looking to make discoveries. So if you create something that becomes hot in your neighborhood and starts to spread and has a following, people will pay attention, right? And so that's not knocking on the door, that's just sort of that's not waiting for permission to do it, right? That's going ahead and doing it, figuring out how to do it, and letting them find you. And I think that's a position of strength. Yeah.
I love that. What were we going to say?
Oh, no, I totally agree. Don't wait for permission. Like, people pitch me stories and they're like, oh, we need $500,000 to do this. And they haven't made things before. And it's like, just make things. I mean, cameras are easy. You can do it on your iPhone. If you have like good ideas, just like make things like and have things to show people. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the best places in the city because you have your network, you know, you have your classmates. If you end up within our educational component and, you know, a lot of crew there to help you. And I would agree with that, except that can it be daunting because it does cost some money to put together because you don't want, I'm just maybe concerned or posing that idea about maybe making something that isn't up to the aesthetic standards that you want. I mean, everybody wants to be, you know, Spielberg and whatever, but, you know, you don't want it to also look inexpensive and cheap, right?
Yeah, and if you go online and start saying, hey, talented people that know what they're doing work for free, you will get a lot of, you know, people will not like that. You'll get flamed and your posts get taken down and stuff. So there's kind of two roads where you can find the money, raise the money, you know, your own money if you absolutely have to throw the crew and the equipment what they're going to need for just like a baseline production value. Or, going back to what you said earlier, your network and building friendships with people who are in a position to they bring their camera and now they're your friends, so they want to do it. So it's like the friend route where you're all working on it together and it's, you know, very like collaborative and good feeling. And then the sort of, okay, I've raised the money and we've got a skeleton budget, let's do this. And then finding people who can, you know, maybe drop their rate, but yeah, you want to try and pick one of the two.
Okay, I like that. I'm getting information already. I hope you all are taking notes. I see some notebooks out. I'd love to ask, when you were even referencing social media, obviously, in the age that we're in, how important is it, Kristine, for our content creators to build up their own individual brands and have social media presence when going into a room and pitching?
I think social media plays so many roles. One, it can play the role of research. So knowing the audience that you're going after, you can kind of look at not just their profiles, but the things that they're into, the way that they communicate on social media, the type of content they're posting, and that way you kind of have an understanding of how you communicate with them. So you can speak to them in the language that they want to speak to as well. But as far as having a social media presence, it is important, yes, but I will say that there are some people who are behind the scenes doing a lot of work that don't have the biggest social media following. They don't have the most activity on their page, and they're still getting things done. So it is important to have that network and continue talking to people and to continue using the people who are nearest and dearest to you, and even creating connections to those afar, because you never know who can help you do what, who can be there for advice. But social media does serve its purpose in terms of understanding and learning and getting a feel for the space before you actually put your content out there.
Also, with social media, though, on the other side, just because someone has a ton of followers, doesn't mean like, oh, I'm gonna get money for my film. I have like 2 examples. Like I've had a few people come to me with films like with Julia Fox, and she has millions of followers. No one wants to see a film with she. Sorry, no, I think people maybe do want to see it, but no, like having her in a film, there's been a bunch. She's in a ton of films. No one knows it because they're not really getting out there. So like some of that stuff doesn't always work. And like I know another film, I guess I'll throw out names, I don't care. Like there's like a film right now like with like Machine Gun Kelly. It's a great film. Everyone just wants to hate him. No one wants to see this movie.
I like him.
Oh. Okay. But most people just want to hate him. And it's easy.
Isn't any publicity good publicity though? So I see what you're saying though. It doesn't mean you're gonna get all this money for your project. It also doesn't mean that you're necessarily a great content creator. I just brought it up because of the era we're in, and it's just sort of like brand awareness of, you know, you have like the script, you have this idea. It's one thing if you come into the room and you have 50,000 followers already, because I mean, I think a lot of, we can all agree that a lot of the films and TV series, even though there's so many of them, there's so much we can't even consume it all anymore, but there's a lot of crap movies being made. And they are making all these ridiculous remakes. Why? Because people know about it already. And it's really a business. We're not in the film friendship, we're in film business. And it's hard that is such a hard line sometimes.
Can I make a point about multi-hyphenates?
Please do. One of the best multi-hyphenates.
Don't know about that, but back to Machine Gun Kelly. So I think part of what you were saying, germane to that, is that people don't take him seriously as an actor because they're like, oh, he's a musician, he's a bad boy, you know, maybe like he's just good looking and does one thing really well. How could he possibly be a good actor? And sadly, that kind of is still true as I've been pitching this year, where it's not every room, maybe not even most, but I've been shocked at some of the rooms that I'm pitching to. And they can't really fathom that I could be an actor and a creator at the same time. Like I couldn't possibly be good at more than one thing, maybe not even one thing. And these are like Hollywood people and like, you know, F that, whatever. But just be prepared, like if you want people to take you seriously as a multi-hyphenate, you really need to be good at all those things and to be able to show that you're good, because otherwise there's just still this backwards idea that people can't do more than one thing.
I hear that. I think it's really changed though, because I know when I was starting out, it was like if you were an editor, you were an editor, and that's it, you know. And it has opened up, but it's interesting to hear your perspective that, you know, people are just looking at you like really like a microscope.
Yeah, I would thought it would have, you know, completely disappeared by now, but still lingering.
Yeah, they always say just cut it down to 3 because I have so many hyphenates. They're like, no, pick a side, really. So what about how many ideas that people should have? Because I know sometimes we have our one script, you know, we're the auteur, we want to get this one done, but shouldn't we have more than one idea when we get into the room? Because what if you pitch something and they're like, okay, I hate it. Don't you want to have a backup, or should you be focused on your one thing? What do you think in terms of that?
I think you should definitely have a backup, because even if it's not like the person you're pitching, maybe they do like it, but maybe they're working on a project that is very similar, and they can't do 2 of the same projects that have like a similar like vibe or kind of like narrative, and you know, maybe they love it and they're like, oh, we can't do that right now, and having a backup, I think, could really work sometimes.
I think it depends on what stage in the pitch process you're in. Sometimes, in my experience, you're in there to pitch. You've been called in to pitch something, one particular project that you know, has either been submitted or folks have heard about, right? And you probably won't be told, in those situations, you're not told in the room, no thank you, what else you got, you know what I mean? So it sort of depends, I think, on what level you're talking about pitching. And there's a risk of having too many things. You know, the guy who opens up his coat, it's like if you don't want the knives, I got the spoons. If you don't want the spoons, I got the timbales. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, you don't want to be too much of a salesperson in those situations, because I think that feels desperate, right? I don't think you want to come off as desperate, because you're not, and you shouldn't feel desperate. You don't need them to make your work, you know, unless you need $20 million, then you need them.
Speaking of getting $20 million, how have you all gotten in the rooms that you've gotten in? Do you want to give some, I know part of Misha teaches some of this, right? And we don't want to give all her trade secrets away, but what have been some of the, you know, really good rooms that you've gotten into, and what got you there?
Showtime, HBO, True TV, AMC, IFC, Hulu. Yeah.
Did you have an agent? Do you need an agent?
No, I did not. It would have been helpful. And really to be taken seriously as anything other than some like kind of rocket out of left field with like a bunch of cool ideas. To be taken seriously, I was eventually told I did need a literary agent, which I think this year I'll probably, like pretty soon it'll happen. But you know, it tends to take a while. Like you tend to need some pretty strong credentials before a rep is interested, especially because a lot of people found their writing genius over the quarantine. So there's a lot of writers now represented.
Awesome. Does anyone have, are you a little far in your career for this question?
Yeah, I mean, I've had meetings with all different people, but you know, I think there are some like places to go to kind of like meet people. I think going to IFP or Gotham Week, there's a lot of people there, and you can like set up meetings if you join that. Same thing with like South by Southwest has like a meet market where you can meet people, as does Tribeca. They did. I don't know if they're still doing it, but anyway. But there are many festivals that have things like that, and I think that's a great way just to like meet people. And sometimes, you know, if it's like a meat market, like, and you sign up early, and even if like you're young, you can try to, or you're, you know, first time you're pitching, you get to like sit with these people and kind of see if you succeed or if you fail miserably, and then kind of like pivot and like figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, these pitch forums that he's talking about are, in my experience, you have to submit to them and be selected, right? You can't just walk in off the street. But they still are extraordinary. They're great. But you can go, you know, like Sheffield Doc Fest, if you're talking about documentaries, has a very good one. Tribeca still does it, right? Gotham, IFP. You can spectate. You can go and see people pitch. And I think one of the best ways to learn to pitch is either receiving pitches or watching folks pitch, you know? And you'll know instantly, like if someone is in command of the material, you feel passion when there's passion. You know, that's I think one of the best ways to learn the craft of the pitch, is to watch people pitching.
Right, and Sheffield Doc Fest is probably the best. If you're like for like pitch markets, yeah, I've actually been on both sides of those, and they actually get a great group of people together. So if you're doing docs, definitely like look that up.
Yeah, we do have, you know, we have doc space, we have the narrative space. How long should the pitches be? I just read something where you should try to say your pitch as fast as possible, because you might have to, I've heard 5 minutes. I mean, fast as possible to just see how much you can get in a short amount of time, because you might be in an elevator and have to, you know, quote unquote elevator. Does length matter?
So that's, you know, the elevator pitch you could also call a log line, right? Which is a sentence or two that sort of captures the essence of what it is. you know, I guess there are instances in which folks have sold stuff that way. There's a famous story about James Cameron going into Paramount with a book of photographs or photorealistic paintings of the Titanic on the bottom of the ocean. And he passed the book to the exec he was pitching to, and he said, "That ship, Romeo and Juliet." And allegedly he sold the movie, Titanic. You know, I mean, that's the story. That's the story he tells. You know.
He was James Cameron at the time.
What's that?
He was James Cameron at the time.
I guess he'd done, you know, what had he done? Terminator, yeah. So he wasn't James Cameron of Avatar, but he was, you know, yeah, still had to have a little bit of a hat in his hand.
So if you're a nobody, like I was when I first started, and it's sort of like, imagine, you know, like you're on a date and you really want the person to like you, and you start to tell a story which, you know, you're not sure if they're going to like it or not. So you kind of start to tell the first line of it, and then you just see how they respond. And if they're like, "Oh, really? That's amazing. Tell me more," or whatever they say or move, or you watch their body language. And then if they give you the green light, you just tell them more of the salient details. And then if you're like 5 minutes in and they're riveted and you're like, "Oh, this is going well," you keep going, right? So you want to prepare the 30, the 1 minute, the 5 minute, the 10 minute, the 20 minute. Because sometimes I've been in rooms and it's like, I've been talking for 20 minutes and they still want more. I'm like, okay, I guess I could keep going. And then they're pretty good at letting you know, like, when to shut up.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about knowing your audience and reading the social cues. So it's not always evident up front who you're going to be in a room with or who's going to be on the other side of a table, but once you're in that room, it's very important to kind of understand the signals that they're giving you. If something isn't going so well, knowing if you should pivot what you're saying, or choose different words to get your point across, or possibly you have a completely different way of presenting your idea, whether that's pictures, whether that's a story, or whatever else. But knowing your audience definitely plays a huge part in that.
Ooh, I love that advice. What were you saying?
Pictures are really helpful, you know. Pictures are really, really helpful. A lot of folks prepare lookbooks when you're, you know, either for series or for movies, right? And it's a good way when you walk into a room and you're all nerves to have media with you, right? So you can bring up the media, and then, you know, it's suddenly like there's another person in the room with you. It's not just you and standing in front of a group of folks. So prepare media, and that's something that you can control, you know, before you walk into the room. You can do pitch reels, you know, edit something that captures the essence of what it is you're making, right? And then talk, and then answer questions, you know?
Lookbooks and like pitch decks are really important. I get them all the time, and the one thing that I really think is the most important is spell check. and learn how to write. Like, it's crazy. Like, sometimes I started reading, I was like, oh, I'm into this. And then, like, there's, like huge typos. And then also aspect ratio of pictures. I mean, like, figure that out before you're, like, trying to pitch to someone. Don't, like, yeah, people know. And that is a total turnoff. Like, if the pictures are stretched. And, like, you'd be amazed. No, I'm not. I used to be amazed. But so many people send me things like with both of those things. And they do seem like sometimes good projects. But I'm like, oh, they don't really care enough. Yeah.
Is that one thing that I was going to ask my next question? What differentiates like a good pitch from a not good pitch? So that's one of them. Just presentation. So that's kind of obvious. I mean, Canva can be you guys' best friends. I mean, you don't necessarily have to outsource that. At least I use Canva now, and I'm a whole graphic designer now. So you're welcome. And sorry for all the graphic designers I'm putting out of business because they have templates for that. But no, really though, good pitch, bad pitch. I know that's very simplistic.
The
but
materials or the vibe?
Well, you know what? I guess we have to go back into the idea, because that's one thing we have to really separate out, because this is about pitching, but it's really about presenting your ideas. And is this a good idea? I mean, it might not be, but you know, who's to say?
And are you cool? Do they want to go into business with you? If you got a great idea and you're a a-hole in the meeting, like, they're probably going to pass, especially if you have no track record. So, you know, are you the kind of person that can charm somebody in a conversation? Can you make someone feel good? Can you give off relaxed body language? Or if you're, you know, because tension can be so high, like you were saying, and you get in there and all of a sudden you're like, find yourself being like argumentative, and, you know, just weird things happen. So try to kind of practice like being in those settings of just being cool.
Oh, and don't lie. You really, that's another huge one. Like, I have like a lot of friends. If you say my friends are attached, I reach out, and then like, oh wait, they talked to you you talked to them once, and it's like, oh, don't do that. People do that all the time.
Just name drop, and you're just pulling it out of the clear blue sky. Okay, good to know. Yeah, don't name drop, don't lie. I love the relaxed energy, and you know, Misha being a trained actor, does that help a little bit? Should we all take an improv class? Because
I think just because they're fun, but yeah, it helps. It helps confidence, right? I mean, it's so effervescent, like hard to pin down, but if you can figure out how to get it for yourself, then do whatever it takes to have it.
Almost in the same vein of acting, know your material, because if people ask you questions and you can't answer something about your own concept or idea, then I'm not sure they're going to take you seriously. But know it inside out, backwards, forwards, and everything. It's your idea, you wrote it, you came up with it, so you should be able to, you know, answer all the questions about it.
And not even just this season, but like get a season together, get the second season together, and even maybe a third, at least a paragraph, because we don't want to buy just a one-off. We want something to have legs, and you know, that is how many seasons did like ER have? You know, it's like, how many seasons do you have in this that we can like, you know, stretch it out. Let's see, what should we unpack? I
have some other things. Do your research of the person that you're meeting with. I mean, that's huge. And don't just do like a little Google search and just see like the highlights. Actually, like, see what they've worked on and like see that. Because like, if you Google me, it comes up on that sidebar that I'm an actor. If you're like, oh, you've acted a bunch, I haven't. It's just a weird lie. And like, so just do your research and like see what films like the people have worked on, and maybe watch them and actually watch them, just in case like you have to have a conversation about it. I think that goes a long way, like just doing your research.
Yeah, people will get offended if you don't know who they are sometimes.
That's a whole thing, right? Like, who are you again? Let me look. Given that, should people be, should we change our pitches depending on who we're pitching to, or should we just go to the streaming platform or where we want our project to live? I mean, I'm just talking about authenticity and just, you know, being able to sort of pivot. How important is that, do you think, in this marketplace we're in?
Well, if there's something you want to make and it's not what the streamer or the studio you're pitching is buying, you don't want to, you know, you just say thank you and you go and you try to make it somewhere else, you know? I mean, you know, there are ways of spinning subject matter, right? You know, if you're pitching a studio or a platform that's sort of women forward, right? And then you want to, maybe you want to talk about your female protagonist first, you know, or talk more about, you know, that you can sort of custom tailor pitches to the buyer, right? But the whole idea of just being so desperate to sell that you'll change it on the spot, you know, what's the point of that, you know?
I think part of that goes back to knowing the audience, because you wouldn't take, let's see, Doom Patrol, of course I'm going to throw out an HBO title, to National Geographic, for example, because it's a completely wrong audience, it's a completely wrong title. So doing that research, as we mentioned several times up here, up front, and knowing who the audience is, knowing what the platform is about, knowing what kind of content yours would be sitting alongside makes a huge difference in where you're going and what you're putting out.
Given that, how important do you think it is for content creators to be malleable and be able to take notes and direction?
Very.
How very? How much? Why?
It's such a fine line, and that line is going to be different for every individual creator. But to get notes from a network or from a production company once you've gotten the green light, and then not be able to take those notes, you know, I loved working with you all because your notes were fabulous. I agreed with every single one of them. That won't always be the case, and you have to figure out where is my line of the things that I just can't get behind, and the things that, like, it's more like kill your darlings and like, oh, I'd hate to see that go, but they want it gone, so it better go, right? I think it's a personal battle that every creator and writer has to struggle with, but yeah.
I like that, and also we want it how we want it, but there's two different things. Like, do you want to make money, or do you want to necessarily just sell this idea as is? And that's something that you will have to figure out, I guess, because I'm following a lot of these film entrepreneurs, and one gentleman, Jay Horton, Jay Horton, I would like to give you a shout out. This guy he just makes money. He makes films. He was doing documentaries. He's selling on TVOD and VOD and all this stuff. And he was like, oh, people said do documentaries. He's like, okay, pivot. I'm going to do documentaries. He did a documentary on Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And he's like, that's streaming. He was like, I was making like a couple thousand a month on this. And he made it in 2 weeks. You know, so there are, you know, I have, like I said, the creme de la creme up here, and we're not trying to just, you know, make a bunch of stuff for TikTok necessarily. However, you know, there is, you know, do you want to necessarily even pitch? Or do you want to make money at what you're doing? I'm sure you want to do both, but that's something to just kind of ask yourself, I think. And, yeah, I don't know if you guys follow Jay Hort, but he's kind of awesome. What about just, I'm sorry, I'm like spacing a little bit. This is live TV, let me not do that. Where are you guys going next? Like, what is on the horizon for you as content creators, and are you still even involving in, do you have to pitch? Like, do you still have to pitch? Tony?
Yeah, I was on a pitch call today. We're looking for financing for an indie feature doc. You know, the thing about, you know, we talk about rooms. Nowadays, most of it happens on Zoom, to be perfectly honest. You know, so if you're trying to sort of imagine what it feels like to go in and pitch, a lot of it's Zoom. I mean, I'd say, I don't know about you guys, but, you know, 9 out of 10 maybe. You know, we were in LA a few weeks ago, and we had a meeting in LA with someone in LA, and it was on Zoom because someone didn't want to drive across town, you know. So that's the new reality, right? I didn't answer your question, though.
Yeah, I mean, you did, because you have to, and that really brings
I see. That's
up,
right.
I'm going to open it up also to questions now, but my other quick question is, how has, like, this pandemic that we're in sort of changed the landscape, because we are kind of able to get in some more virtual rooms where we weren't able to get into the actual rooms before. Can anybody speak on that?
I think being in the streaming space, there are a lot of streaming platforms. There's a lot more coming up daily, a lot more indie platforms that are popping up. So there's a lot of opportunity to get content out there. Even, I mean, people who started their series on YouTube who have now moved to streaming platforms, there's a lot of chances to get things out there. So there's always room to pitch, there's always room to put things out there. So I don't think that there's a moment that you should take your foot off the gas. If you have the idea, continue to create it, push it out there, and keep pushing forward. So there's room for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pandemic definitely helped making it easier to pitch people and get in touch with people. And I think people are maybe even more willing to talk because they don't have to leave their house. Yeah, I actually think that's one positive thing. I also think that people should stop making pandemic narratives. I get so many sent to me, but anyway, that's a whole other story. There's so many rough ones. Yeah. Anyway, because everyone just like hung out and wrote their pandemic films.
Yeah, you had 2 years to get this right. It should be very amazing at this point. Does anyone have questions? Let's start here and wait. Let's get your. Maybe I should give my mic. We don't have the mic. Well, this is just for TV. I'm sorry for you.
Hi, I guess my question is, kind of from both sides, when you pitch, and then I guess if you want to give your opinion on being pitched to with this, if you're giving a proof of concept, I'm very meticulous about getting releases and all of that stuff. Is there any leeway at all on when you're just showing a proof of concept of, oh, this is from like Good Morning America, and I don't have the money to pay for this release right now because it's like $100 a second or whatever it is. Like, or when you give a proof of concept, does everything need to be squared away?
No. If it's private, then who's going to know, right? So just don't put it on YouTube.
Well, I mean, from the point of pitching to somebody, like, do they want to know? It's like, do you have releases for these interviews? Do you have?
No.
They don't care.
If they're asking you, do you have? I mean, if it's a pitch reel, if it's proof of concept or it's a mood reel, and someone's asking you if you have releases, I don't think that person's a professional. You know what I mean?
It's like a private document. And same thing with a pitch deck. You don't have permission to use those the photos. Like, it's just a private document that you're not going to disseminate out to the world.
Cool, great. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah. Save your money.
So this is a question for Misha, but also for everyone. So how do you get into the room with some of those companies without an agent?
You know, it's complicated, and in case by case. That lady right there, let's say I want to be her friend. How do I make her my friend by the end of this event? Each and every time, each and every event, I just say, I want to know that person, and I want them to know me. And then you make it happen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I guess my question is around, Kristine, as you were talking, and this is for everyone, because of the proliferation of streaming platforms, not only just the big ones, but all the independent ones that are coming up, there's so much content. Like, even from an audience standpoint, there's a lot of good things out. I just don't have the time to watch everything. So from a pitching standpoint and putting content out there, I guess I'm wondering if people are thinking differently about, are you really digging into like, okay, what makes this special? Because there's good stuff out there that's not even being seen. So like, what are you looking for when you're looking on whether a pitch or a piece is good to move forward with?
I think right now is probably the hardest moment in the last 10 years, maybe. This is what I'm hearing. Because there is so much content, and because of what we were euphemistically, jokingly calling consolidation of jobs that's happening at all the streamers. I mean, if you haven't heard about that, you know, I'm not going to say you all have to read the trades because they're pretty boring, but having some idea of what's going on in the industry doesn't hurt. But the proverbial bubble has burst, right, in terms of the amount of money that's being spent, the amount of stuff that's being bought. That's just the hard reality. You know more than I do, so.
Yeah, there's no secret. Like you said, there's a lot of stuff in the trades right now about a lot of companies that are merging together, consolidating roles and things like that. But when it comes to content, and I'll speak on it from the audience perspective, there really is a huge piece of what I do in my day-to-day, what I do with the clients that I consult with as well, as far as knowing your audience. there's something to be said about putting in that research up front to understand who you're speaking to. Does the content have relevance to that audience? Are you actually speaking to them? Can you make a connection with that audience through the work that you're putting out? And is that content strong enough to, you know, stand out amongst all the other pieces of content that are out there? And you have to kind of put in that work up front to know this is something strong that you're willing to stand with and that you're willing to stand behind throughout. When it comes to all of the streaming platforms, yes, I see some pop up now I've never heard of, some that are coming out daily. People are talking about creating their own every other day. So that network of people, you know, as Misha mentioned, being in the room and figuring out who you're going to be friends with does help, because even in a room like this, other people here are, you know, here for the same reason that you are. So bouncing ideas off of people, getting feedback from people, making sure that what you have is an original idea or thought, and that you know that this is something that you can push forward with. Really, I mean, again, I'm the audience person, so I'm not going to take my foot off of that knowing who you're speaking to, but 100% stay behind that.
Right, and there are a ton of SVODs, like subscription service platforms starting like daily almost. It's easy, I mean, if you just have a little money, you don't even need a ton of money, and you could get on like, yeah, make your own platform, and a lot of people are doing it. So, and a lot of people, you know, are taking pictures and talking to people, but also, again, do your research, because you never know, like, oh, there's so many starting and there's so many closing too. So like they just do your research, see what they're doing, if they actually have funding, and because there are a ton of platforms right now coming up all the time.
Yeah, this reminds me of one thing that I wanted to say earlier on, to kind of a little bit speak to your question and to also a little bit speak to yours, which is when you're approaching anyone, I find it so helpful, and I coach, so I tell all of my clients the same thing. It is not an ask, it's an offer. You're not asking. You're saying, I have something that's fucking gold, and if you want in, we can talk. I know that it's great. Hopefully you do too, right? So just remember that. It's not an ask, it's an offer. If you come like asking for a handout, that's cringe. No one likes that. No one wants to feel like you're taking something from them. Instead, give them a little piece of your brilliant idea.
Yeah, I totally agree, but also don't come into the meeting saying, I'm the next Scorsese or something like that, like, and then you're just like, yeah, don't go too far.
How you doing? My name is Donnell Johnson. This is dope. I love what you guys are doing. I got in a little bit late. I just wanted to know, I know you were shouting out platforms. What are some platforms where I can pitch my projects? I know you said, somebody said Tribeca. I just want to know what platforms can I actually, you know, contact somebody, email, Zoom, person, one-to-one, just to actually, you know, pitch the projects, the ideas I have. Because I had a couple of ideas that I done for fun, and I seen bigger platforms, bigger stations, even Hollywood, they've stolen them and done them over. So I did it for fun. I'm like, maybe I should take it a little bit serious now. So my question, I asked to the whole panel. Sorry, I was here late, so I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, that's okay. We are opening up our open pitch soon, so you can maybe pitch to BRIC TV to start. But what you can look at, what are you looking at, and what are you? Yeah.
I did a short film. It was based off a smartphone. I basically started the demographics of filming actual short films with a meaning and a purpose, you know, not too much dramatic or violence. And it's called Text Trapment. And I shot it over the pandemic like everybody else. And I turned on my TV and I see a couple of shows on Hollywood, not saying no name, that mimics the same exact thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, there are no new ideas. Yeah. That is what, you know, people say. So yeah. You have to have your spin on it, mm-hmm. and, you know, make it interesting. Yeah. Have the Issa Rae effect of, you know, it's a relationship series, like.
That's a fact.
But it's like, what are you bringing into it? Sometimes attachments can work, but you know that's hard. But you know, this would be like probably a longer conversation, but like, what are you doing with that content? Like you said, you made it. So then what?
Basically, I did
What do you
a
need
short
to
film,
pitch?
for like 22, 23
Oh, you're
minutes.
trying to get it. You could just get it up, you know.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it into like more like
maybe
movie,
Amazon,
like a little bit longer.
You know, maybe you can go to Amazon, and
Facts.
you know they've been purging their stuff, but people have been getting their things on Amazon, and just you know TVOD, so just people pay to have it on Amazon. So you know there's, you know, just you know, do your due diligence, do your research, because you know a lot of this is on YouTube University.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there's also some good places to place short films now. I mean, there's like Short of the Week. You can reach out to Vimeo to try to get a Vimeo staff pick.
I have got a couple of emails from a couple of film festivals. Like a good 10, 15 reached out to me. So
and there's a
They do love to take our money.
Yeah. That's what I'm.
Right. And there's also No Budge, which is a great, actually my favorite short film platform.
Thank you.
And who else? Short of the Week actually started their kind of like do-it-yourself platform last week. So I'm not exactly how that is working. It really just launched a new short platform. If you look up Short of the Week, and I forget what their new platform is, but they just started a short film platform.
Thank you.
Dust as well, Amaletto, Alter, I think is one. Amazon did away with their web series acquisitions, which is so lame, but yeah.
Hi, I don't want to be repetitious, but the reason I'm asking this question, everyone is saying, like Misha, for instance, got in front of a lot of people, right? And someone said they mentioned LinkedIn. But when you're looking for someone at LinkedIn, and are you looking in the programming department, can you just give some definite more answers of how do you get in front of the people? Because I'm one of those overly prepared people. I have everything that's necessary, but it's to get in the room. So are you going to give us like a list of network, a list of festivals? Who are the people I'm reaching out to in LinkedIn? I just want a more definite answer so I know where I'm going next. Because I've spoken to a lot of people tell me get agents. And that's another aspect which is very hard to do at the same time. So can you just give me something more definite how to get in the room?
I'm going to let Misha talk a lot about that part, but just in the beginning, just to say something, it is starting in places like this, going to the events. I know a couple of festivals were mentioned, going into rooms. Myself personally, not on the pitching front, but just in the connection front, I've gone to thousands of conferences and networking events, meetup events where I've seen people who were producers and pitchers and people in marketing to actually connect with people, and those have led to different projects that I've worked on. So just on that front, when it comes to the LinkedIn piece, I know LinkedIn is pretty hard. You know, you can add people all day. Not everybody responds to you, but you do have some I have asked friends that I've seen as like a 1 degree of connection from somebody else to introduce me to a person, and that has helped me get some of the jobs I've had in the past and some of the projects that I've worked on. But I'm going to hand it over to Misha since she's been in those rooms.
Have you made anything? What have you made?
So my name is Miss Francois, that's MSS for multi-talented and super sexy.
Clearly.
So thank you. I host a show called the Miss Francois Show, which we have candid conversations, a variety of entertainment, and I use humor to help you, yes you, deal with your dysfunctional relationships. So I've been doing it for over 5 years now. I do a lot of other things having to do with presentations, but I've spoken from people from OWN Network, people from Star TV, I've spoken to different people which tells me the best thing to do is for me to get an agent.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what they mean. So first of all, congrats on even getting those conversations. I think a misconception is that it's very hard to get in touch with decision makers. It's actually not. And if you go on to Google and you're like, who buys content for HBO? or you could, talk to us after this. But like, you go on Google, you find out what are the job titles. What's the difference between development and acquisition? Well, I've got 3 heads of development here for HBO, listed right there on LinkedIn, and I can Google and see who are their assistants. And in fact, the trades, they're boring, yes, but you can see like who gets hired as executives to oversee development or acquisition. Those are the gatekeepers. Those are the decision makers.
So focus on acquisitions.
But if you don't have a product that they're going to take seriously, they'll maybe take the meeting, maybe, but my point is it's actually really easy when you have something that is like gold and is really ready to be presented and to be pitched. I haven't seen your work. I have no idea.
No, mine is
it
platinum.
Sounds awesome.
It's not gold, it's platinum.
Well, exactly, exactly. So, try to get a way to get back to own and make them take you seriously. But people think it's if I could only get the meeting. You can get the meeting. Like anyone can get looked at, because these people are so hungry for authentic content coming from people like us. Like, they're falling over themselves to find it. You just have to make sure it's professional enough that they're going to want to see more.
Okay. Thank you.
That was great. We have time for one more question. Who is the closest? Can you get into them? And I would also say to that point too, Urban World is coming up. I would definitely go into Urban World. Those are some good rooms to be in, but I like that idea of like, they're going to be finding you. Like, content, distributors are looking at even, podcasts right now and, just finding content. So they will find you. Go ahead.
Okay. Kristine, can you take us through the process of audience planning and what that consists of, and just, a more in-depth summary of what that consists of? Because I've worked in nonprofits, and audience development was always a key buzzword and a very important component in that area, with the nonprofits that I worked for. So audience development is very appealing to me. So could you elaborate further on audience planning and what that consists of, please?
I'm so glad you asked. But there's a lot that goes into it. I will not lie and say that I don't have the benefit of a big company like HBO behind me to give me a lot of the tools. But in the beginning of it, it is very much having those conversations with the people who are sitting up here on the panel, the showrunners, the producers, the EPs, the everybody's, to know exactly what the show is supposed to be about and who they believe the audience is supposed to be, taking that information, and then, you go from there. So even on the simple tools, I know earlier I said something like, something about social media, using that as a research tool to understand who the audience is, the intended audience. What are they doing on social media? What's the type of content they're putting out? That is obviously a free tool that you have. And yes, there are other tools out there, but that tool kind of gives you an idea of your demographics. Is it more male? Is it more female? Are they 18 to 24? Are they interested in comic books? Are they interested in sports? You kind of get those inklings of what this audience looks like, and you use that as your seed and kind of build upon that. So information from there might tell you, if my audience is 18 to 24, maybe I should go for TikTokers versus people on Facebook, because Facebook is a different demographic. But that's kind of how you start, just doing that, having those conversations up front for each of the shows, or just understanding what the intended audience is supposed to be, and then doing that research. So the other part about that is the intended audience is not always, it doesn't always match up to who the actual audience is. So sometimes people may think that this show was created for this particular person, and then once a commercial airs, once a teaser airs, we realize that the feedback that we're getting is from a completely different audience. So having the ability to be able to shift strategies midway or throughout is a huge part of your entire process as well, and knowing how to implement those different strategies in the later phases of your production as well. But we can definitely talk more, because there's so much more to say on audience.
Yeah, it's like a light question at the end. What is audience? Yeah, and are there some tools that people can use, like different apps? I mean, there's your analytics on your IG. There's 100%. So many. We have so much more available to us in terms of audience development. So
yeah, you have the Google Analytics, you have the social media tools. They do have back-end some of these social planning tools. There's Hootsuite, there's Later, there's a lot of those. They have analytics too. Some of them are free. The free ones don't always give you enough detail, but some of them are as cheap as like $8 a month to get some detailed things. Sprout Social, there's a lot of, you know, readers out there. And then there's some platforms that help you scale, kind of crawl websites so you understand what website is the best place to be on, what context certain media is positioned in. When we talk about the trades, what type of people are reading those articles. So looking at all those different channels from TV to social to web, all of that stuff gives you a well-rounded picture of who your audience, of what your audience profile would look like.
If I could just squeeze in, how do you pivot when you come to the realization that your intended audience is not your actual audience, but it's another audience?
So in your promotion strategy, you can shift that way. So the type of content you're putting out or the people you're talking to, there is something about, I know if your content is all the way shot, then you don't really have, you know, the content is already there, but the way in which you position it can attract a new audience or reach new people. So we can definitely talk about that more. I think there's so many strategies when it comes to pivoting based on the signals that you get from the audience, but using the tools that you have to read those signals up front is what's going to tell you how to move.
Thank you so much, everybody. I think we just wanted to have everyone just give their social media handle, and we're going to be out. You can reach me at Kecia Elan.
Awesome. Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Misha Calverty, and I'd love to take any questions. If you have follow-up questions, just DM me.
And I'm at Factory 25.
I think it popped up on the screen. I'm at Seen, S-E-E-N-A-S, Kristine, K-R-I-S-T-I-N-E, and my LinkedIn is Kristine A. McPherson, so feel free to add me on LinkedIn too.
I'm at Market Road Films. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming, and good luck with your journey.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to our awesome panel. This was such a wonderful evening, as usual. Thank you to Kecia for moderating. Thank you all for coming on this really wet, stormy evening. Again, the next event in the pitch series will be on November 1st. So check out the website, bricartsmedia.org/pitch. All of the other events are on that page. And I'm going to turn it over to Matthew and Esther to just talk a little bit more about Media Maker Weekend.
Yay! Day one is done. Woo. I am super excited that all of you guys got to attend Media Maker Weekend. We appreciate it. We hope you had an amazing time and took notes and connected with each other. And this is only day one of 3 days. We have more panels to come, more free stuff. You know, they'll tell you the free headshots Saturday, 1:30 to 3:30, but I'm gonna let Matthew take over.
Thank you very much, Esther. And before I get started on letting you guys know what is in store for the rest of the weekend, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out to come here. As Sky said, the weather is inclement, and the fact that you all decided to be intentional and come down here, it speaks volumes about the importance of this weekend, the importance of fostering a community amongst you guys. And it's homecoming is the theme of this year's Media Maker Weekend, not just because of the fact that it's the first time in 2 years that we've had this conference in front of people, so you're not all floating squares in the internet, but the fact that we're getting back to the communal aspect of working together. And I really appreciate that. You guys set the tone for how the rest of the weekend and the next 2 days are going to be, and because of that, I couldn't be any more optimistic about what we have in store. So thank you. You all deserve a round of applause for yourselves.
And we also like to give a special shout out to the entire staff. We couldn't do it without you, and to our SVP, Anthony Riddle. Kecia, you did an amazing job. Sky, thank you for Wes, our president, for allowing this to happen in person. That's another thing. It takes a community, and this is what a community output looks like. So if you guys are thinking, hey, I can't do this, this is literally built off of a community of great producers, great tech people that just came together and saw a vision and made it happen. And special thank you to Matthew for adding me as a co-producer. Yes, let's clap it up. And even thinking of this, you know, this was his baby, and hopefully, well, I know because I'm on it, it's going to get bigger and bigger. It's going to be a 3-day expo if I have a choice with it.
Thank you, Esther. I can only hope so, too. So tomorrow, we have orientation at 11 o'clock right here at the Stoop. For all of you who were here earlier and were up in the media center and got to see our facilities and were very enticed by our cameras and our lights and our microphones, you guys can get access to that to create your own programming by just coming down and taking some certification classes. That starts with an orientation. That's tomorrow here, right here on the Stoop, 11 o'clock, 11 to 12, and after that you'll be able to sign up for studio production, field production, editing, podcasting, mini studio, all of that to create your own program, so we will put it on the air for you for free, okay? You can see us in all 5 boroughs on Verizon. We stream everything on our website, so you see us all over the world. So don't forget that. So that starts at 11 tomorrow, orientation. Then we have an excellent class on color correction with DaVinci. Color correction is a very important part of post-production. I can't stress that enough. That starts at 2:30 tomorrow upstairs in the Media Center. We also have a podcasting storytelling workshop that's happening in the Media Center upstairs as well tomorrow. And in the ballroom, just beyond those doors, we have our keynote address by an excellent Craig T. Williams, who's a wonderful founder of Red Wall Productions and a producer, editor, and writer in his own right, who's excellent. You don't want to miss that. That's tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Then here we'll have a DJ, we'll have some food at 8 o'clock for a nice little mixer to get to know each other a little bit better. And it's always great to get to know each other with some free food and some dancing. That's always great. Then on Saturday, we will be having short-form video classes. We will be having a workshop, well, like she said, we'll be having headshots all day on Saturday. So if you want to get some professional headshots for free, I suggest you come down on Saturday. You'll also have a behind-the-scenes film, behind-the-scenes photography workshop that's also happening on Saturday. That's separate from the headshots. We will be having a creative storytelling with Unreal Engine workshop. That's going to be super ill. For those of you who watch The Mandalorian and all that stuff, the Unreal Engine's used for that. It's crazy. You guys definitely want to see that. That's on Saturday. And then we will be screening The Warriors, the cult classic The Warriors, right here on the Stoop on Saturday night. And for free, and we're going to be having an audience talk back. So after the movie is done, I will be moderating an audience discussion about how we feel about the movie and some other things, and try really, really hard not to drive all the way to Nathan's to get a hot dog afterwards and some funnel cake. But please come back for the whole weekend. Like I said, everything starts at 11 tomorrow here on the Stoop, then 2:30 in the Media Center. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for coming. Everyone, please get home safe, and just thank you. I just very overwhelmed. Thank you so much. And thank you to the panel. Thank you to Kecia. Thank you, Sky. Thanks our wonderful film crew and editing and engineers, Leslie, Zach, Jonathan, Daniel, everybody, all of our camera operators. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. you.